Okay, I'm going to talk about two important principles that can help make your chokes more efficient. Now, these principles especially apply for chokes that you're doing with your arms or your hands. One of the principles will always exist. The second principle, it cannot be there when you're doing chokes with your legs because your legs are so much stronger than your arms. But these principles are essential when it comes to things like collar chokes, sometimes even guillotines, things that you're using your arms, and that you see that most students, they're just heaving for dear life here, okay? The problem that I often see when it comes to choke is that people simply have the perception that chokes are about squeezing the neck really hard here. And as a result, way too much strength ends up being used. The first principle that we're going to talk about is postural deviation. If you look at my partner here, okay, you can imagine either that him in this position is either in your guard or on his back and you're mounted on top of him. If you look right now, his head is neutral, right? There's no tilt to it. It's not turned here. It's centered to his body here. When you apply a choke and there is no deviation in his neck and spine here, it becomes much, much harder to do here. So what this means is that you must create some sort of misalignment in his neck and spine when you are applying the choke. So his head could be tilted, turned, okay? Now it can be in extension up or down here, okay? Optimally, you would like to have as many deviations as possible. This means that the neck and the structure of the neck itself will be much weaker when there's more than one deviation. For example, if his head was turned, tilted, and twisted looking upward here, it's mechanically much, much weaker. If you can create all these deviations and apply the choke, this will be much, much more effective here. So once again, if you start looking at other deviations, his head could be down, okay, here, and also tilted here. Once again, when a choke is applied and the neck is deviated here, it's going to take a lot less effort. So one common mistake that we always see here is, once again, a person is simply, there's no misalignment in the neck and then the choke is being applied here. So how you can test this out is that when you are beginning to apply the choke on your training partner here, as you choke here, let go of him, and then you can have a third person, or you can even do it, just back off and look at his neck and spine. Does it look like there's any sort of misalignment? If he looks like he's just, for example, if you're on the mount, if he's just laying there and everything looks straight and you were just squeezing, then you know it's going to take a lot more effort. So once again, the first principle into increasing the efficiency of your choke is to ensure that there is, and you are creating some sort of misalignment in his neck and spine. Alright, now that we talked about what must exist in your opponent's body, or what you must create in your opponent's body when it comes to applying the choke, let's look at the second principle, which is the application or the angle of force that you must apply onto your partner here. Once again, the reason why most people have a problem with doing chokes, especially collar chokes, is because their idea is that they are just squeezing the neck. And let me give you let me draw an example to show you what I mean. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to put my belt around my partner's neck here. I'm going to cross it in the back, okay? I'm going to put my knee and shin right in his spine here, okay? Now, what I'm going to do is simply I'm going to pull this thing tight and squeeze his neck. And he's going to tap when he feels he's choking or it hurts here. So once again, flex the muscles in. You don't have him flex the muscles in his neck because you know what? People are going to do that when they're resisting in real life anyway. Here, so I come here and there I go. Now, if you look, if I squeeze his neck, I don't feel comfortable keeping my elbows in. For example, everybody's been talking about the choke from the mount here. If I'm doing the choke from the mount in this position, and I think about just squeezing his neck, I keep my elbows in and I do this, I can't even do it. I have to do this. That's why everybody keeps flaring their elbows out, because in their mind they're thinking about squeezing the neck here. And once again, I made my partner tap, but it just took a lot of strength to do here. Now, so what you want to do in reality here is to hang your opponent here. So what I mean by this is I'm going to have the same crossing of the gi belt in the back, and I'm going to go upward a little bit here. Okay? So I'm going to cut upward as if I'm hanging him. And so when I do this here, I get the tap. And you see also I can keep my elbows in toward the side of my body. I'm making this point for the elbows. Obviously there are other techniques such as the guillotine that their elbows may not be against the body, but just for the sake of, for those who want to understand, for example, collar chokes, that's why I'm making this point here. So you see, it took a lot less strength when I cut upward, like I was hanging somebody. So if you think about, for example, an execution, if they hang somebody, very few people actually die from their neck snapping. They actually die from getting choked unconscious here, okay? Now, so, once again, I'm going at this upward angle here and getting it here. Now, how do we minimize the amount of strength even further? Let's combine the first principle. So, if I have my partner, for example, turn, rotate his head, and tilt upward. Now, when I hang him here, it is even more effort. That took half the strength there. Okay? Now, let's give you another one. So, I'm going to have him look down and tilt here. Okay? So, once again, I do this, and it took a fraction of the strength here. Alright? So, once again, when I start combining postural deviation, deviating the neck and spine, along with an angle of force that hangs them. Now, I'm not saying that the angle of force when you hang them must always be a pull from the back. It could be a push from the front. It doesn't make a difference. But it's that angle of force that simulates hanging your partner that increases the efficiency of the choke, especially when it comes to the use of your arms. So now, when you start looking at these principles, you can examine people like Marcelo Garcia and his guillotine choke here, Roger Gracie and his choke from the mount here. And you can see that these principles are applied in very, very subtle ways here, and that's why their chokes are so effective. So, if you are unaware of these principles here, and all you focus about where's the wrist supposed to be when I grab the collar, where's the hand supposed to be, elbows in, elbows out, you're going to spend all day trying to figure this out, and it won't feel right to you because of these missing principles here. So hopefully now that you have learned the two key principles for efficient choking, you can apply the details to techniques that you already know, and once again make your chokes more efficient.